The conventions are over and the final sprint to Election Day is on. Both the Harris and Trump tickets are campaigning this week on the #1 issue for voters, the economy. Vice President Harris is kicking off the week with a $150 million ad buy about the cost of housing.
I know what home ownership means, and sadly right now it is out of reach.
While Trump's VP pick, J.D. Vance, is punching back in the heartland.
She cast the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Explosion Act. What she has done has been a disaster.
All of this 2 weeks ahead of a debate between Trump and Harris that earlier this week Trump threatened to cut off, saying this about the host network, ABC.
The single worst network for unfairness, I think, worse than CNN, worse than NBC, which is really hard to believe.
Now, with the debate back on, Trump's campaign is ramping up its activity, hoping to throw a wrench in Harris's momentum. To break down the latest polling, we're going on the record with Director of Data Science at Decision Desk HQ, Scott Tranter. Scott, a new poll shows Vice President Harris holds a 7-point lead over Trump nationally. This is a pretty significant survey. Are we seeing similar results in other polling?
Yeah, look, ever since she won the nomination, ever since Biden decided to step away, we've been getting a lot of new polling on her, and it's flipped. Our DDHQ, the Hill average, she's plus 3.5 going into this. This poll is just going to add to that. This kind of momentum is something we've seen of as late.
Now, you guys have a forecasting tool over at Decision Desk HQ. What is that saying now about the race between Trump and Harris?
So right now we have her at a 56% chance of winning. And if we were talking just 6 weeks ago, that would have been about a 55% chance for Donald Trump. That just shows you how much the race has flipped since then. Again, 55% is real close, but slightly in her favor.
Now, have we seen a major shift in polling since Kamala Harris officially accepted the presidential nomination at the Democratic National Convention last week?
So we haven't seen a whole lot post-Democratic National Convention. We have been seeing, at least, just prior to the convention, and I imagine we'll see the trend continue in some of these swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Her polling has gotten consistently better, specifically in the state of Michigan, which in our forecast she's taken just out of toss-up range into lean Democrat.
Usually after conventions, the party gets a little bit of boost. I wonder if you see that coming and whether that will have an impact on your forecast and future polling.
Generally speaking, historically speaking, actually, usually conventions get 2 to 3 point bumps. We're going to have to see. We're going to have to wait a few more days to see if that bump will materialize for her. But what we have seen, post RNC convention is 1 or 2 points for Trump as well. So I'd expect to see the same for her. But even then, we're still 75 days out from an election. A bump is not necessarily a sustained lead. I think we've got a few more roller coaster rides for the polling in this race.
Now, Democrats are seizing on Harris's momentum, with the party increasingly hopeful about its chances of flipping the House and even keeping the Senate. While we're still over 2 months until Election Day, what is Decision Desk forecasting about Democrats' chances of taking full control of Congress?
Full control of Congress is going to be tough. The Republicans have a square, very solid advantage, very likely to win the Senate just based on the map and how far ahead they are in Senate races in West Virginia and Montana. The House is much more of a coin flip. Right now, we have the Republicans at about a 55% chance of winning the House, but that is razor thin. We're projecting 219 seats for them. You need 218 to control. We've got a lot of campaigning left. I wouldn't be surprised if the next time we speak, that's 55% chance likely for the Democrats, just given how close some of these House races are and how much turmoil there is at that level.
Now, Harris has announced that she will be sitting down with CNN's Dana Bash later this week for her first interview since she launched her campaign for president. Harris has been criticized for not holding any news conferences or granting any interviews. How important is this for the vice president, and could her strategy of avoiding the media end up backfiring with voters, maybe if she doesn't do more of events like this?
So far, avoiding the media, or at least doing what she's doing, has been good for her in the polls. But just like Joe Biden got a lot of backlash for not doing a lot of interviews, I think that could eventually creep up on her. So this first interview is good. but it's not going to be as important as that first debate we've got in about 2 weeks on September 10th. This debate, a lot of people are on vacation this week. Most people don't perk up to the election until post Labor Day. So it's important, but it's not going to be as important as the debate we got coming up.
Now, Harris and her running mate Tim Walz are down in Georgia this week taking a bus tour through the Peach State. Biden, of course, won Georgia in 2020, and Democrats would love to keep it blue this year. How realistic do you think that is?
Look, it's much better chance now under VP Harris than it was under Joe Biden. Georgia fundamentally is a Republican state, so all things being equal, Donald Trump is favored to win there. But her polling's gotten a whole lot better. She's shoring up support among African Americans. And right now, we look at that state as a toss-up, and so that's certainly a state to watch. That one in North Carolina, to be honest, Harris is making a run at both those states.
Former President Trump has had a long-running feud with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp over the 2020 election results in that state. Kemp has been pretty popular there, and while the two have recently appeared to make up, do you think that feud alienated some Republicans in the state?
Yeah, certainly the ones who support Kemp, and he's a popular governor. Like we've seen this from Trump over the last 10 years. One day he dislikes someone, the other day he likes them. A lot of it's based on what that person can do for him or what that person's saying about him. Brian Kemp has been pretty consistent over the last couple of years about not necessarily saying anything bad about Trump, but not saying anything good. And again, Georgia has moved into the toss-up stage, and Donald Trump needs that state if he's going to win the presidency. So I think this is a strategic move by him to make amends.
And the Cook Political Report now has North Carolina as a toss-up state. It's a major shift away from Trump. Is Decision Desk seeing a similar shift left in the Tar Heel state?
Yep, we also see it as a toss-up. It is a state from the polling perspective has gotten a lot closer. It's a state that leans Republican in terms of its demographic makeup. So all things being equal, Donald Trump would have an advantage there. It's a state he won in 2020, even though he lost the presidency. So it's one he's counting on getting. But Harris, again, is shoring up her African-American segment of the vote, as well as energizing some of the Democratic base that wasn't necessarily there for Joe Biden a few months ago. So certainly a state to watch.
Switching gears to Texas, Governor Greg Abbott's administration announced this week it purged 1 million voters from the rolls. Some of those are people who died or moved, but some may be voters who simply didn't respond when the state reached out. Do you see this having any impact on the tight Senate race between Ted Cruz and Democratic challenger Colin Allred?
No, look, the 1 million votes purchased sounds like a lot. This is something all 50 states do. They do this to clean up the voter rolls. Some of them are going to do it again in a few weeks. Texas decided to do it now. 1 million sounds like a lot, but Texas has a lot of people. A lot of people move in and around Texas. And think about the last time you moved. It's not something you generally think about to remove yourself from the voter roll. So I'm not necessarily surprised. I don't think it's going to significantly affect the race one way or the other. This is just normal election operations done by the state.
RFK Jr. is turning some heads, dropping out of the presidential race and backing Trump. Just this week, the Trump campaign announced RFK Jr. will be part of its transition team if Trump wins the presidency. Along with Kennedy, former Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbert has also endorsed former President Trump and would also be given a role on the transition team. Are these endorsements seen as a ploy to land a cabinet position? And do you expect it to have any impact on the election?
Oh, yeah, they're absolutely a ploy to land some sort of position, cabinet transition or otherwise. That's just how this all works. And Kennedy's been caught on tape saying he was give his endorsement to either candidate for some sort of position or some sort of cabinet spot. So, yeah, I'm not necessarily surprised about this. The Kennedy endorsement probably means a little bit more than Tulsi Gabbard endorsement, but all in all, it's going to be on the margins. A lot of RFK Jr. supporters were probably going to vote for Trump anyway, because as we know, RFK Jr. was not on the ballot in many states. So even if someone wanted to vote for him, they probably couldn't. Tulsi Gabbert's been a influential figure on the fringe, is the way I will say it. She's got her core base of supporters, but not widespread. I'm not necessarily surprised she's endorsing Trump. I think these are good media hits. They'll probably be okay on the trail for Donald Trump, but I don't know that they're going to make a huge impact on the race at this point.
All right, we'll be watching your coming forecast very closely. Scott Tranter, Decision Desk HQ. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for What's America Thinking. I'm Drew Petromo. Come back next week. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel.